Okay, so I don't really know how to start this video. I've got some pointers on the screen, but I don't have a script as usual, so I'm just gonna talk, I guess, because there are some important things that I want to mention, that I want to talk about. For example, the very stark division within the Division community. I guess that's a nice way to say it. And then also just some general feedback on things and just the way that I've seen things go recently. Because, well, I guess first of all, the game has been a huge hit. I will not deny that. Honestly, before the game launched, I never expected it to do this well. I didn't think it was going to do bad, but I thought that despite the improvements that the Division 2 had made over its predecessor, a lot of the mainstream audience wouldn't dig deep enough into the game to find those improvements. That's what I thought. And I feel like that a lot of people would feel on the surface level it would still feel like the same type of game. And that the complaints they had with the Division 1 would also carry over to be the complaints that the Division 2 would get. Like, for example, a lot of players would say that the Division 1 had a lot of bullet spongy enemies, and I thought that a lot of players would still say the same when they played the Division 2. But that actually hasn't been the case as much, and even the major review outlets have praised the Division 2 for making big improvements to its core gameplay. So that's good to see. I mean, the game's getting a lot of praise. I think it's deserved. I certainly wasn't expecting it to do so well, but hey, I'll take everything, right? It's good to know that so many players are enjoying it. Except for some bullshit articles about, the Division 2 taking a political standpoint because it takes place in America and the game has guns. This is just some bullshit there, I guess, but I think that the Division 2 is as much of a success, and even more of a success than I would have ever thought it to be, simply because of how I thought that the mainstream audience would react to the game. So yeah, the game is good. Let's get that out of the way first. But the game isn't perfect. It has some flaws. It has some things that it can improve upon. And I think that those are the type of things that are always important to talk about, because you can praise a game all you want because you're so happy with it, but without giving criticism in the right places, it can also never really improve. However, I feel that lately, the community and everybody around the Division 2 has taken a very hostile approach. The environment has taken a very hostile approach to anybody that says anything that isn't positive about the game. Everybody is just ready to go at each other's throats for having a different opinion about something, which is just not great when it comes down to simply providing some thoughts or feedback. I would say the community is very split right now. I see it everywhere. Everybody is fighting each other, and that doesn't just exclude me. It's on Twitter, it's on YouTube, in the comment section of other people's videos, in the comment section of my videos, on Reddit. It's PvE players versus PvP players. It's hardcore versus casuals. It's even YouTubers and Twitch streamers versus Reddit. It's like everybody is just on the edge because everybody here enjoys one part of the game and then is afraid that any feedback from the opposing side is going to do something that would negatively affect their experience. PvE players are mostly afraid that any possible changes made to weapons or gear for PvP will make those same things invalid for PvE. And PvP players are afraid that the next cool PvE talent that's going to be introduced to the game is going to break PvP. It has started to become this endless, vicious cycle of back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, where everybody's just ready to pull the trigger. As I said, I'm not excluded from this. One easy example is where I recently made 2 tweets about the PvP, sharing my thoughts. One where I said that the normalization feels too aggressive and that it hurts build diversity just a little too much in my taste. And also where I said that the one-shot sniper build right now is just a little too strong in PvP. I wasn't telling the developers to change anything. I wasn't trying to alter the game to my liking. I was just tweeting some wild impressions out there after a whole day of playing. And then the next day I wake up, the whole Division 2 front page is filled with posts about how YouTubers are crying for nerfs again, and massive, please don't listen to them, they are the cancer of gaming. I mean, really guys, is that how you're going to react to 2 tweets? Can no one have different opinions anymore and just talk about it instead of all the conversations just turning into an endless back and forth? Fuck the streamers, fuck the YouTubers, fuck the Reddit crybabies, fuck the hardcore players, fuck the casuals, fuck PvE, fuck PvP, fuck the Division, and fuck everything that comes with it. That's going nowhere, and it's creating this environment where every piece of criticism against the game, no matter how valid, no matter from where you're coming from, can be thrown under the bus by invalidating someone's position, by calling him a PvPer, or a PvEer, or a casual, or a hardcore player, or, oh, he's a Reddit user, don't listen to him. Oh no, it's the YouTubers again, they're crying. As if being any of those things is somehow inherently bad. And it just overshadows any meaningful conversation we can have about the game. And I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of this too. Obviously, after seeing the Reddit post with those 10,000 upvotes against me, who just made 2 tweets, yeah, of course I'm going to be frustrated about that, and I fell in the trap too. I just said, okay, fuck you guys. I'll just build the one-shot build. I'll just not provide feedback and just fuck up the game with that. And that's what I did. I made the one-shot build. And I uploaded it to YouTube, and exactly what I expected to happen did happen. Now we have a lot of people saying in the comment section that the one-shot build is too strong, and that it's cheesy, and that I'm an asshole for abusing it in PvP. So there's no winning here, you know? Talking about the build, maybe suggesting that it's too strong, turns me into a crybaby. Using the build and just playing with it turns me into a cheesy abuser. What's the play here from me? Just pretend it's not in the game, never talk about it, and just look the other way every time somebody brings it up? What? How is that good for the game? Do I think the one-shot is too powerful? Well, yeah and no. I think that if you fully spec into a sniper with maybe the headshot scope and everything with it, you know, min-max build, yeah, why shouldn't you be able to one-shot most of the players? That's fine. But currently, you can one-shot with any random build. I think Wits even showed on his stream that you can equip 6 green items and just get a sniper with a headshot scope, and then you can one-shot players as well. And I think that kind of defeats the purpose of builds in PvP, especially if there's no way to build yourself tanky enough to be able to tank a one-shot. So a full green build can one-shot any build in the game. I think that kind of defeats, you know, the whole RPG aspect. But of course, when I talk about that, a lot of the PvE crowd right now would fall back into that same trap that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Because, you know, I'm talking about this, I'm saying, hey, you know, maybe this needs looking at. But then they're afraid that Massive sees that and nerfs a sniper and makes a sniper invalid for PvE content as a result. And thus, instead of looking at both sides of the coin here, it's easiest to dismiss any argument with, oh, you're just crying because you get killed with it in PvP. Stop crying, it's a PvE game. Stop crying, it's this. Stop crying, it's that. And it just goes nowhere. It just goes nowhere. And is that entirely fair? Well, I hate to admit it, but actually, yes, it is very fair that players are like that, because this is actually what happened with the Division 1 over and over and over again. The easiest example with this would be the one-shot Seeker Mines in patch 1.6, something that was equally as cheesy as the one-shot Sniper is right now, maybe even cheesier because it is way easier to use the Seeker Mines, but then also less cheesy because the Seeker Mines at least had travel time and you could dodge them by doing a combat roll. Well, you can't really dodge a sniper bullet, so you know, I'll leave that up for you guys. But anyway, both are cheesy, and back in the Division 1, players asked for nerfs for months. And Red Storm had all the time in the world to figure out how they wanted to nerf it. They took a very long time to do so, and instead of simply just putting a PvP modifier on it, they straight up nerfed the base damage and as a result also butchered it for PvE at the same time. Which was, I don't know, that was definitely an interesting choice. And it was also the same the other way around. Every time that Massive or Red Storm had introduced new cool gear sets to the game, such as when Reclaimer was first introduced in patch 1.3, or when Nomad was introduced in patch 1.8, they were cool for PvE, they added value to the game and made the PvE game cooler, but as a result, they also butchered the experience for many of the avid PvP players, with infinite explosive ammo, or just players having 3 or 4 or 5 lives, which is... that shouldn't be in a PvP game. And even now, because so many casual players did not enjoy the Dark Zone in the Division 1, the Dark Zone in the Division 2 has been altered so much to the point where what made the Dark Zone fun and unique for many players in the first game doesn't make it that much fun for players in the second game anymore. And I'll get back to this a little bit later in the video when I talk about my personal feedback. So don't jump the gun right now and say, oh, it's just because you can't gank players anymore. No, because that's not the case. You can still gank players. It's not the point, right? That's not the point. But I'll get back to that in just a second. Basically, the Dark Zone right now feels like an extension of the open world rather than a PvP zone. You see the occasional player here and there, but the team versus the server setting where you can just try your best and really test your build, it's not there anymore. It's just You gank somebody and within 5 seconds it's over, and then you're spending 20 minutes searching for more PvP. And for some players that's great because that means they can farm and experience the Dark Zone. But for a lot of players that enjoyed the way that the Dark Zone was in the Division 1, it's not so great. Again, there's two sides to the coin here, and we'll get back to that in just a second, because if I talk about it now, it's just going to be an endless back and forth anyway. I think the core of the problem is that we have so many different players playing the Division that all come from different sides of gaming, I guess. Killing players in the Dark Zone and ganking them is seen as toxic by some, but then Escape from Tarkov is literally a whole game built around that concept. And the players that play that game, the whole player base, isn't seeing that as something toxic because it's literally part of the game, just like it's part of the game in the Division. If I play a game of Rainbow Six Siege and I'm winning with 3-0, do I care about the opponent's feelings? Oh, maybe we should let them win a couple rounds because they're not having as much fun? No, of course I'm not going to do that. So why would it be any different with the Division? Just because it's not a competitive game, does that mean that I'm not allowed to have a competitive mindset about things? And about the power leveling thing, in MMORPGs, power leveling has always been a very normal thing that players do. Whereas with the Division 2, if you make a guide on how to level up fast, I see tons of comments of people getting defensive and having to comment down, well, I'm just going to take my time and enjoy the story. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's good, great for you. Enjoy the game, play the game however you want to play it. But why are you then watching a video on how to level up fast and feel the need to comment that down? I mean, isn't that kind of weird? And who's to say that I'm not enjoying the game by just playing it faster than other players? What if I just want to get to the end game fast and enjoy that part of the game? Does that really affect your experience? But then I try to reason with those people on Twitter, and then the knee-jerk reaction is, well, just wait until you run out of content and cry there's nothing to do. No. It's like, I think it's fine if you take the game slow. I think there are a lot of players that do that, but I don't get the hostility for players that have another opinion about that. And this just comes back to the fact that, yeah, again, the Division just has so many different players that come from all corners of the industry. Everybody wants something different for this game, and it's just ready to jump on the next guy that doesn't agree with that. Now, am I the most stand-up guy to bring this to everybody's attention? No, of course not. I myself, I'm not an angel, I'm not a role model, nor do I pretend to be. I mean, I love PvP, I love to fuck with people a little bit in the Dark Zone, just like I would fuck with others in any other PvP game that I ever play. And yeah, I'm just of the opinion that if the other player on the opposing side of it is really having the worst time of his life, he can always just leave the game, leave the server, go somewhere else. So really, there's no harm done ever with games. Worst case scenario, the other players is going to have an unfortunate 5 minutes of a somewhat not enjoyable experience. That's literally the worst case that can happen. On the floor! There we go! Fuck your mom, motherfucker! So I killed him a few times and took his loot. But so what? Again, that's the game. Oh, but you said on the floor. That's toxic. Yeah, okay, I guess that was toxic. But again, I'm no angel. I'm not role-playing the Division as the holy fucking priest of St. Mary. I'm just trying to have some fun. Because if it isn't for games, then when can you have some fun? When can you fuck around just a little bit, Laugh a bit. But does that make my opinion about the PvP or this game irrelevant because I'm a toxic ganker? Well, no, I don't think so, because if my opinion about the PvP isn't valid because I'm toxic, then the opinion of the next guy is also not valid because he's not as good at the game. Truth be told, those are both not ways to look at it. Both players can give valid criticism. Everybody with an X amount of play hours can provide a valid opinion regardless of their personality traits or individual skill level. So what I want to get to with this video, I guess, is just saying that, we should all just go back to providing useful feedback instead of lashing out at everybody with a different opinion, afraid that the developers will push out either one party. And with that, I guess I want to get to my feedback, and I'm going to keep this rather short because this video is already way longer than I wanted it to be. I expected this first part to be 5 minutes, but I guess this is what happens when you talk without a script a little bit. But I think that the Dark Zone and Conflict is it's exactly what the developers and many players wanted it to be in a Division 1. And while I can see that how the Dark Zone currently is going to be a good thing for many players in the game, for me personally, a lot of what made the Dark Zone appealing is kind of gone. And again, this is not just because I cannot gank anymore. That's not the reason. Truth be told, normalization or not, you can still do the typical gank on a player. You can still kill him from the back and then steal his loot. In fact, it's made way easier than in the Division 1 because it is so much harder to track players, both in a normalized DZ, but especially in the occupied DZ as well. But I don't actually play the DZ to gank players and then steal someone's loot to try and extract it, despite what a lot of players may believe. 99% of the time that I'm in the DZ, I don't really even care about the loot. I'm just there to play some PvP, to get challenged, to try and survive, to try and just try my best to beat other players. It's like that for every game that I play. I always just want to give it 110% and I'll play 12 to 14 hours a day to improve or do whatever. And again, this isn't just with the Division. You know, I also played some other games. For example, Heroes of the Storm, a MOBA you might have heard of. I played it a lot during June and November last year when there was a lot of downtime with the Division 1 because there just wasn't anything to talk about right after E3. And I grinded a solo ladder in that game. I got the top 200 on the leaderboards in EU. Then I joined an amateur team and played in tournaments. And over the span of those 5 months, I had fun. I could improve and I could give it my all and still be challenged.
And at this point, we actually have a fight for the #1 spot in the standings. And that's between these two teams. So they are eager to advance. So on the right side of the map, it is 4B1B. With Transparent on Malfurion, Dunder Danny on Jaina, Marco Style on Diablo, Sunrise on Urel, and Insanity on Thrall. Going into, and now, of course, the question, can they get a kill? Can the red team turn this around? 5 kills against 2 so far. They move in against Hanzo. They don't get him. He still has the arrow. Army of the Dead being popped once more as they're starting to make the kill attempt. But the arrow comes through. Lucio's low, but they try to go for Fear and they drop her. Lucio again barely surviving, below 100 HP, but the Haka in the meantime is trying to make the play for the objective.
You know, that's fun to me. And while the Division 1 is very far from a competitive game, very far from it, in fact, PvP is not even the focus of the developers. I know that. But the matter of the fact is that the Dark Zone in the Division 1 still offered some kind of challenge. You know, you could get a 4-man, you could get the perfect builds, you could practice, you could play everything right, and then you have those 10, 12, 14, or maybe even 20 other players that would show up and you would just fight against the odds. I have the best memories of just going hard at it and killing 90 players in a row.
One guy down.
Go, no, he's down. Go in.
Can we change attack?
No, I'll blue, go. Here you go. Going.
Okay, go.
I'm throwing a nade.
Yeah, me too. I got a shock nade on them.
Yeah,
Dude, the shock! Go!
yeah, blue.
One in between us as well.
Yeah, green. Push green.
No medkit.
I pressed my ally here.
Sleepy's running in place, dude.
Killer.
Sleepy, you're running in place. Go back. Go to the back.
But I'm getting shot from the fucking
Go,
wall.
yeah, you're running in place. Go back.
Run back to Miami.
We fight here again. Which was just, it was a challenge. It was fun. And that part of the Division that made it so great, that made me want to keep playing and practicing and min-maxing. It's gone for me now because of the way that the Dark Zone is set up. You know, the Dark Zone 2, again, I already said this, but it feels more like an extension to the open world with the occasional player here and there that you can gank. If you get lucky, you find 4 players and they come back out as the checkpoint after you kill them once. But usually after that, it just turns into an empty Dark Zone again. I'm almost level 50 in the Dark Zone, and I've only fought 2 different squads so far. Haven't seen anyone else. And again, in the occupied DZ, this is even worse because there's no rogue or manhunt mechanic, so players cannot come back to hunt you down. Again, this design obviously encourages that ganking behavior, killing somebody in the back quickly, stealing his loot, and then running away with it, which is, I guess, what the developers want for the DZ. That's their vision. And as cool as some players that might find, and as enjoyable that might be to a lot of players, a big part of the player base, it also does take away the part of the PvP that I really enjoyed in the Division 1. Because, again, I don't really care for the occasional gank. And it's not the normalization either. I think normalized items is a cool way to make PvP more fair, but there are a couple things that I don't like with it. For example, I would like it if normalization would only bring my stats up. So it's much easier to understand for everybody what the normalization does. And I also don't need 2 different builds for normalized and not normalized PvP. And also, I think the main problem with the normalized PvP is that while it butchers some of the build diversity, it also doesn't suddenly make the playing fields equal. You know, I think a lot of players like normalization, but even in the normalized PvP, we still see very cheesy builds. It isn't that normalization is suddenly the saving grace for a more fair environment. So then my question is, what does the current implementation of normalization really do for the game? Does it really make the PvP that much better? I don't know. I don't really think so. I think it actually takes away something from the game right now. And that's kind of my feedback. Again, not saying that anything with the game should be changed. Just sharing my thoughts on both the game after playing it for about 75 hours now. And I know it's early. I know the game has just released. But I think that with the time that I've had so far, it's enough to form a fairly definitive opinion on these sort of things. And I've also talked to a lot of other players who are all sitting above 100 hours playtime. And we don't agree on everything, but we agree on most of these points as well. I think this is just a general train of thought for a lot of the hardcore players out there. And I think that's why it's important to still bring it up. So yeah, I guess that was going to be it for this video. It's a long video. It's a long video, longer than I wanted it to be. But anyway, let me know what you think about all of this. And as always, I'll see you guys later, or like they say in the Netherlands, zie je later.